So far, we have some learning outcomes that we worked on for this course. One is that you should understand, HTML, modern CSS, and frameworks. And I think that we're doing a pretty good job with that. We know most of the basic tags. We know how to add IDs and classes. We know how to add CSS to that. We know how to throw Bootstrap in there. Hopefully, you've looked at lots of examples and you've seen what ASP core demos build for us, and that gives you a pretty good understanding of what many of these web pages are using out there. In process, so we're learning MVC. We're still getting controllers and views, but we've got this nice system that puts a lot of that in place for us, and we're able to send actions to our server, get data back. We're able to send requests from our server to the back end to the database, get the database data, put it into object models, operate on those models, and move forward, right? Question? No. And then the next thing we'll start doing is using JavaScript to do web page manipulations. JavaScript allows a lot of power on the front end. It's pretty amazing of a language. It's got some flaws, but it also has a lot of power. We'll discuss that. So that's where we are so far in what we're trying to accomplish this semester. Any questions? Do you agree with that synopsis? Grading, PS1, PS2 are done. Some statistics, about 85% of the class getting B- or better, seems great. On PS2, there's 14 people who need regrades. Hopefully you've already asked for it, but if you haven't, please contact the TAs using the private Piazza channels. Yeah, by the way, if something goes wrong, like I know a couple of you, like you weren't able to download the grade scope, or you're a minute after the date or something, just reach out and talk to us. For the most part, we're very accommodating. We don't want to grade work. We don't want to misgrade work in those circumstances. Here's some common errors that I'd like to avoid in PS4. For example, some people did not submit the SLN, the solution file, in order for the TAs to run. They have to have an SLN file. And so I asked them to just ask you kindly to hand them that SLN file so they put it with your work, and then they can see your stuff without having to try to regenerate it themselves. A few of you submitted just the SLN file, thinking that was the entire package. And it's not. It's easy. I mean, it says solution. It could be a zip file. It could have everything. But it doesn't. So we need both the SLN and the file structure. At least a couple people, I don't know if this is Gradescope's fault or what, but all the files were in a single massive folder. There was no folder structure in them. And so if that happens, just let us know. We can get your folder structure and it will work. And then some people, like I saw a number of people who turned in homework 2, and it was called Web Application 1, which is the default whenever you start up a test file. Or I think one person had a Contasso University name to their application. It's like, let's fix that. Again, you are welcome to fix those errors, communicate with the TA, TA will give your grade, and all those missing grades will go to what we need. PS3 is about half graded. I've asked the TAs to try to get that done by tomorrow night, so hopefully we'll have that tomorrow. If you made any of those mistakes on PS2, please feel free to send us the files for PS3, and when you turn in PS4, try not to make those mistakes. So the next thing I'd like you to do, though, is get some feedback. Go to the clicker questions, and there's about 5 or 6 questions. I'd like you to take a couple minutes to fill those out, and then we'll discuss your feedback about the course and some other stuff. All right, let's take a look at some of these things and see what we can do about it. Pull this up. Okay. So it looks like there's some suggestions people have, which is great. So we'll talk about them today. So let's see if I can bring up some of these. Maybe I should just summarize. So I was looking through some of the suggestions. So one is like a few people, probably a good chunk, think that the assignment should be much more specific. Like, this is exactly what you need to do. So let's talk about that. Right. Someone want to advocate for that point of view? Sure.
I'm not advocating, I just like want to put my comment in there.
Sure.
So you're mentioning the influx nature of the assignment, which is totally understandable. That's a web architecture class, we have to put our flair into it. But then there are things that are required for you to grade properly. Some of the rubrics that you expect to see.
Right.
Like, for example, like learning outcomes have to be there, right? The name, the description, like the examples of the uploaded files. So these are the things that, to me, at least, I believe should be outlined pretty specifically, like in a bullet point fashion. And then the rest, whatever you believe we should do on our own, you should say, yeah, whatever you style, the way you want to style, that's up to you. And we're not going to dock the points if you style it differently, if you put pink color instead of blue, if you have the link showing in some different style that we expect, something like this. So subjective element, I guess, make it more, I don't know how to say it. But anyway, yeah, whatever you're required to grade, those should be specific. But others, they can be just mentioned, but we can do the way we want.
Other points on that? Yes.
I just think it would be nice to be able to see the rubric on the assignment page instead of having to go to grade scope because you can't access the rubrics unless the due date is passed. You can't actually open the links to see the rubric details.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let me take some notes. Okay, so rubric on Canvas page. Okay, I think that's reasonable. A lot of the rubric sections, like for let's go look at PS4. So a lot of these are taken, hopefully, mistakes, but hopefully from the description. So like you're asked to seed your database on this current thing with users and roles. So that's there. You're asked to have your menus such that they show appropriately and that you have testing links. So that's there. You're asked to have users who are going to be authenticated in the system. You're going to have roles that authorize people to have access. So you click on the different pages. There's supposed to be an admin page that has the role list, the users and role list. There's the README, and then there's your software engineering and any other additions stuff. So this is sort of the thing you were talking about, the extra stuff. So that's sort of how I've currently been listing it out. But is that not detailed enough? Is that what you think?
I think you're right. But we can't see like the point distribution.
You cannot. That is true on this. You cannot. Yeah. Now you can. But so you would want the individual point distributions on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, be aware some of those point distributions are going to be, hopefully, I'm not sure how full. One will be like completely satisfy the requirement. Yes.
Well, so the way that I've been doing assignments, so yeah, you said you tell us we need menus or something like that. You also tell us in the first assignment, ever since then, that we want to do something differently, we can. We just need to explain our reasoning for it in our README. So I think having a specific goal or a specific sort of outline for every assignment doesn't make us all make the exact same assignment. It's going to be more boring for you guys. But also, it's like I think the influx nature of the assignments is perfect. I love the leeway and the ability to express myself in my code instead of just saying, okay, another assignment is kind of exactly what the teacher wants, and that's all I gotta do. It's easier to do that, but it's not as useful.
Well, I mean, we're trying to figure out how to balance this. Yes.
It seems like as freedom increases, so does the number of pissed off people.
Yeah, as freedom increases, the number of pissed off people increases. Freedom versus creating expectations. Yeah, so I mean, it's something, you think, I was talking with a new faculty member about, how do you do X, Y, or Z? And I said, you'd think after having done this for a long time, I would know exactly how to do X, Y, and Z. It's just like writing code, sometimes it's not always obvious. Go ahead.
I just sometimes, the problem that I have is you'll say something like you need to have this page,
Right.
but you won't have an example in class that's showing us what the page might include, or even in the assignment specs, what we should have on this. So I know that there's the freedom of that, but we're not also are the requirements for this. Because an example of this one is the admin user roles overview page. It's not talked about in anywhere other than just stating that we need to have one, but it doesn't tell us what needs to be on there or how that's even related to anything that we're doing so far. So having a little bit more of that written context, or even just talking about it more in class would be really helpful.
Well, we are going to talk about that in class today. And yeah, so again, it's sort of, I thought I was as vague as saying, well, let's look what it said. And again, these are points where I'm more than welcome on, today, last Wednesday, etc. After you've read the assignment, you should bring these type of questions to the class, because when they aren't clear, it's not that normally I'm intentionally being vague just to piss you off. I'm either leaving flexibility or sometimes do make mistakes. So role change page. Let's see, you should create a role change page which is accessible only by the admin. The page lists all users and all roles in a tabular format. Right? So this is, by the way, it's not a lesson for you when you go out in the real world. This is exactly what happens when you talk to users. I'm your user, and I just told you what I think is a perfectly clear definition. And you're rightfully saying, wait a minute, no, it's not perfectly clear. And that's why in the real world you have these dialogues to do requirements analysis with users, you can prototype, etc. So what this means is, I need to have a table of all users. So what I was imagining is like user 1, Jim, Johnny, Danny, Joe, Aaron, Mary, whatever. And then a list of is an admin, is an instructor, is a department chair. That's sort of what I was thinking.
This one actually was fine, like this clarification was fine. It's the one that's under.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, section 8, paragraph 2, it's one sentence that says there should also be a link to admin user roles over page.
Section 8, paragraph 2, there should be a link to the admin user's role overview page.
I mean, it's not talked about anywhere else in the assignment.
The user roles overview page, that's the one I'm.
Oh, well, they have different names, so that's why.
The role change page, yeah, sorry. No, this is perfectly fine. Yeah, that's what I meant by the role, the admin's page. I meant this role change page. So just be a link to this page.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I understand when those things are not. I can understand when they don't come across right, because when I write instructions, it's all up here. It's cached in. If they're not clear, let me know. It's easy for me to update the assignment pages. I'm happy to do so. Other comments, though, on this freedom versus specificity.
One thing I was thinking of, when you leave it open to say, for a day grade, allow us with something that we have class. That's cool, but then when you look at the chart, people are spending 15, 20, even 30 hours on an assignment.
Right.
Are those the A's in the class? Like,
No one is intentionally spending 30 hours.
no, I mean, I can figure the outliers. I got in trouble, but when you leave it that open, things you tend to compare. I mean, allow grade and A grade depends. It's comparative. It's relative to everybody else. So how many hours do you think an A grade takes? I don't know. If it just leaves it open, a bunch of people spend 20 hours.
Right. So my thought would be that if the standard is 10 hours in a class, 2 of those hours would be doing something needed or adding something else. Yeah. So it's certainly not 5 to 10 hours. I mean, this is a legitimate complaint. I'm not comparing you against the other students. I am asking that there are basic things. For example, we talked about this in class, the example where you have your data model, and you have a name, and you have a course name and a description, and you don't have to put attributes. You don't have to say the course name can be 20 characters long, or the course numbers are between 0 and 1,000, or what. You don't have to do that to make the program work. But those are nice little additions that you see examples of in the readings and in the tutorials that show a little bit of extra initiative. That's the sort of thing that we're looking at. And again, usually this is only, what is worth 10 points? And if you add those attributes, it's probably worth 5 points. And then if you do something else, it's 5 points, you've got your 10 points there. But again, I can try to be, I could list, for example, X number of things, but then everyone does the same thing. Yeah.
Well, so I really hate that, not, having to figure out what this creative thing is going to be for every assignment. I'm not a creative person, that's why I'm an engineer.
Which is absolutely not true. I'm sure you are creative and engineers are creative. But can I rephrase, and maybe I missold this as creative. I mean, what I need is just a small step beyond what the base requirements are.
Yeah, I think at least at me, know how much of that small, like what is a small step. And so I spend sometimes an hour and I think that's a small step, and then I get the grade back. I'm like, oh, it wasn't big enough. So then I spend 5 hours the next time, and then it might be enough, or well, we haven't received their grades back yet. So, but I guess maybe like this one was really good. I like that you said on the role change page that excellent work requires the information be pulled from the DB and not hard coded. That's very clear to me. I know exactly what I need to do to get that excellent work. But it also leaves it up to interpretation of how you want to go about getting that. So it's not hard coded. So I enjoyed that you told us how to get the excellent work with that, with still giving us that creative freedom, I guess. We can move knowledge.
To be honest, it takes a lot of work on the user side to specify, many different things that could be good. So it's actually, figuring out all the things that you could do is time consuming. But I guess the bigger point though is how many of you just absolutely dislike this idea of there's sort of this nebulous 10% that you have to go above and beyond, and whatever it is you think above and beyond is. So be pretty brave. Your teammates are supporting you here. Okay, so about half the class or so, right? Which would be nice if it was 99% of you one way or the other. Okay. On the next assignment, I will try not doing that. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Yes.
How many of these assignments will it be? Because it's 40% of your grade. I'm just kind of wondering how much each assignment is worth. If it's even set in stone.
It's not set in stone. I imagine we'll probably end up doing about 8 of these things, and then there'll be a final project. And then, for the most part, all of these are roughly equivalent in value. I haven't seen one that strikes me as so much above and beyond it needs to be worth more. Yes.
So are all of these assignments course associated with designing out contractor, or are there separate, different projects?
There are going to be a couple that are slightly different. And I know I've done long-term project classes before, and students are like, oh, I hate doing the same thing. One of my responses to that is, this is real life. You're going to be working on a project for a long time. That being said, for example, when I ask you to put all of the course descriptions in your database, so that'll be targeted towards the learning outcome tracker project, but we will be learning to use a web scraping tool to just pull that stuff off of the web. So while it's related, it'll be in a different vein. There was a question.
I wouldn't really like a template or an example of how to do the assignment, not that you would ever do something like that. But maybe you can come up with or find maybe some examples of websites you find online that you think are examples of this is about the level of complexity or usability that I would expect from you. And then we make kinds of really crappy websites online. This is a bad website. Don't make this website. And they give me the better ones. Use like the newest bootstrap or whatever. Don't spend 12 hours plus to try and make this.
Yeah, I see what you're asking for. I'm not sure. Like, I'd have to find a website that's doing a very targeted system like this, and it'd be very difficult to do. What I will try to do is show examples in class of a prototype system, and then we could ask questions about, is this good or bad? I think that's worth doing. Yes?
So maybe you could take student examples of already been submitted in past assignments, like give them anonymity by hiding any name or anything associated with that student, show it off.
Right, I actually plan to, by the way, I don't plan to necessarily make them anonymous. Your work is open to peer review in the class project. But yes, I do, in fact, sure sent you some students that did a good job that I'm going to show them instead. That's good advice. We will do that. Okay, so Next assignment, we will try, I'm making my notes here. So for PS5, we will not have the 10% category. And then we had, let's see, show some examples of web features that are good, bad, so we'll try to work on that as well. Is there something else that I missed? Your comments? Okay, any other issues? I know a lot of them do with grading and performance. Yeah.
I think it'd be really helpful if we just had like the required reading released maybe the day before lecture.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go through required reading, like, okay, there's 3 or 4 ways I could do this. And if I've had time to, read through that before the lecture, then I can say, oh, of these ones, which one do you recommend?
This is a fair point.
First instruction in class isn't necessarily the best way to go about it.
Right. That being said, I will try for sure. I do like to prep the topic on Monday. Any of the readings you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, morning, afternoon, and then on Wednesday you can bring questions on those. But yes, I will try as well. Okay. Any other suggestions or points that you'd like to bring up? Yeah.
Just a question, when we're doing the like tutorials and readings,
Yeah.
do you expect that as like the best way to like start from scratch and do that whole tutorial and just like their thing? Or okay, so
Yes.
do that and then use that code from the blank one to try to integrate it into ours?
I strongly suggest that you, when you're doing the tutorials, you start from scratch, you do the whole tutorial on its own, following their instructions. Then when you're doing an assignment, or at least early on in assignments, you start from scratch in your assignment, following the pattern of the tutorial, but updating it based on what you need for this. All right, any other comments or questions? Yeah.
One last thing might be like for like the next time, like just course, but for Mac users, this is like pretty Windows favored technology, and so a lot of the tutorials that you go through, they're very similar, but there's like a bunch of minor details that a Mac user has to go and figure out on his own, which takes a decent amount of extra time to do the assignment. So maybe the next time around that this class is taught, somehow compile some resources together to do the same thing that Windows users doing on Mac.
Let me make a note of that. Well, first I will do a better job warning about Mac, and then list of resources to help with Mac. Sure. Yes.
Can we like kind of go along with this? Like there's one midterm exam in this class, right?
Yes.
Are the assignments going to help us a lot with the midterm, or is it going to be mostly the reading, or?
It'll probably be about 60-40 assignments.
Okay. So if we do fairly well on an assignment, then we should like just review our assignments for the midterm.
Yeah, I will obviously talk about what's going to be on the midterm. Yeah. But yeah, there will be, it might even be 70-30 the construction techniques used in the assignment building, but there is the expectation that you are reading the material outside to get a bigger, broader understanding.
Right. Just going back to homework again, but I think it would be nice to have on the homework explicitly what's out of scope for the assignment. So like I think it was assignment 2 on the professor page, it said there should be buttons to like add like the examples and the learning outcome and everything. And that was out of scope of that assignment, but it was still in the homework description. And I think it said that it was out of scope, but it was a little, I think it could be clearer on the ethics, and I think it would help as well.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then I asked some questions about partner programming, and the question here is, or the reason for this is, I am considering making some of the assignments in the future partners, and so I will look and see what your feedback was. And then we're going to talk about JavaScript, so it looks like a lot of people have no experience with JavaScript. Okay, great. Okay, let's move forward. So this week I will be in my office hours from 2 to 3 on Tuesday instead of 1:30 to 3, but feel free to drop by. For those of you who need a regrade or grade issue, please do the regrade request via GradeScope, but if you have to submit something else and it's not going through the system, just attach it to a Piazza private post to the course staff. And then email me here if you need something. Also, if don't use Canvas to send me email. Use this email if you need something. Okay, moving forward, I saw this Slashdot post on edge computing, which I thought was really cool, and it was apropos to what's happening to us today. So, what is edge computing? Well, how many of you have heard the term edge computing? Not very many at all. So you've all heard the term cloud computing. Anyone that want to venture what cloud computing means? Yeah.
Decentralized computing, so I have an interface to a computing center that's somewhere else, like in Washington. They do all the hard stuff, and it just sends me my data and stuff.
Yeah, so basically, in the old days, there were these things called mainframes. You may remember them. Probably not. Mainframe was all the computing power, and it was in a big room in the back somewhere, and everyone had access through these little dumb terminals, which was just a TV screen and a keyboard, and it was attached to the mainframe and full stop. Then computers got more and more powerful, such that we had these things called workstations, which were basically less powerful than your laptops now, but everyone had a workstation on their desk and did all their computing there. Then the idea of the cloud came around, where they went back to the mainframe idea, where the mainframe is now in a computing center somewhere far away, and your fancy, expensive laptop is just a dumb terminal that allows you to type into that mainframe center. Right? So there are a lot of advantages to cloud computing, to putting resources in the cloud. Anyone want to guess what some of those advantages are? Someone's making a lot of money, like Amazon, so like, what do you guess? It's gone. Yeah.
Well, I know one example is Microsoft using cloud computing for gaming platforms and clouds.
Yeah, you don't need to buy yourself a PS57 or whatever the next PlayStation is. It's on the internet, and all you need to do is send your controller through the internet to it, it plays the game, and then it sends you the nice picture back. And so it can save cost. You don't have to throw away another PS4 or whatever, because the next thing came out, you just log in and they've updated behind the scenes. If you need a more powerful machine, you don't have to go buy a new one. You can just upgrade your account. So there are a lot of nice things. So the problem with gaming and others is there is lag between when you hit a key on your keyboard and when the cloud computing resource processes that or receives it, then it processes it, then it sends it back and displays it. And if that lag is too much, then your experience is ruined. So edge computing is this idea that the cloud is going to have data centers that are all over the place. So instead of you using a Microsoft cloud computer that's in Washington, there would be one here in Salt Lake City. And so now the distance between you and that is much smaller. So edge computing is bringing those powerful cloud resources near you, not into your laptop, but near you. And there's some ideas that you could even go closer on the edge, that you could put these machines, for example, data stores on telephone poles near people's houses. Pretty interesting idea. So, just sort of neat article to read over when you get a chance. Okay, so we're going to talk about pulling users and roles, and then we're going to get into JavaScript. So the identity role manager in ASP gives you this control, all the power that you need to manage users and their roles. And most of that is done through these attribute tags. You say authorize instructor or authorize chair, and it just works for you. But sometimes you need access to the individual users by name and or the individual users by role. And so how do you get those? Well, there are two objects that are built into ASP Identity called the user manager and the role manager. So I will show you an example of how to use the role manager, which you can then use in your homework. Well, just like in any controller, to get that role manager object, so how many of you know the term singleton? Singleton? What is a singleton?
You can only have one instance of it.
You can only have one instance of it. And many of you have written code, probably bad code 2420, that had some sort of singletons in there, even though you may not have at that time known what the term was. You know, there are pros and cons to singletons. But how do you get access to a singleton? So in your old Java code, how did you get access to a singleton?
Static memory.
You make a static global variable that anyone can access, right? That seems problematic to have anyone, anywhere, in any code access anything. Right? So we have these dependency managers, which allow us to only inject those singletons through this mechanism. And the way we do it is when we're creating our controller, we have a parameter that we never see the value of, or we never have to give a value to this function because it's called automatically for us. But we pass in the role manager, for example, and then this is constructed when our program starts up, and we store the role manager for use throughout our code. Okay? So the role manager is stored in our controller. Then we need to use it. So how do we use it? We basically say, hey, role manager, I need all the roles, and hey, why don't you turn in the list? And this will take all of our roles and give us a string that we can do something with. So I have it in two places. One, if I just wanted to debug to see if it was working. And the other, I'm throwing it into this view data bag so that I can use it in my web page. Yeah.
Are these like roles such as manager and admin, or are they roles assigned? Like this professor has this role.
This right here, give me all the roles would be manager, would be admin, professor, or instructor, and chair. Those would be the roles that you get. Right? Okay. So if I do that, then I get all of the roles that are in the system. Well, maybe I want to get all the users. Well, it turns out you can do that exact same process for what's called the user manager. And then you can use something like this, which answers your question. If I have one of these specific roles, here I've used the term role, but I could put chair or anything here. This will get users who have that role. So this function call will return all the users who have that role. Now, there's several other functions that you can look up, and once you know the user manager object, role manager object are the two that give you all this data. There are a couple other functions that you might use, but these two combined are enough to produce the table that you need in your assignments. Okay? Are there any questions about this code? All right. Once you have your list of roles or your list of users, you need to build a table out of them. I mean, at the very least, you could do something like this. I'm just going to say my known roles are, and we'll look at that view data and put my roles there. So you can do something like that. But that's what's expected for that part of the assignment. In the future, we would like to be able to update people's roles on this page. But again, not expected for this assignment.
Quick question, so that method to get users roles async, that's already like a pre-built method, or that's inferring that we make one that then calls EF stuff to pull back that information?
This is already a built-in function.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Just real quick, don't forget, when you are building these controllers, you need to have the route to them. You have to have the authorized. In this case, the only person who can use the admin functionality would be the admin. So make sure, if you're using areas, you have to put the area tag. If you're not using areas, you don't have to use the area tag. All right, any other questions on assignment 4 requirements? Yes.
Wait, so the role change page is a list of all the roles and then a list of all the users, or all the users and the role associated with that user?
The second thing.
That one.
So the question was, what is that role user page? And again, what I see is like Jim. He is not an admin, he is an instructor, he's not the chair. Aaron, he is an admin, he's not an instructor, he's a chair. That's it.
So if we register a user, immediately they will have no roles, but they still need to show up on that page.
That's exactly right. So there'd be new person, not an instructor, not a chair, not an admin.
You have listed out like, who has authorization to certain parts of like, the assignment.
Yes.
So if there's a lot of like edge cases where who gets to see like the edit version of something. It's like if it's not specifically mentioned, this person can see it. Does no one get to see it? There's a lot of like things that end up being no one sees them.
Yeah. So that is not the intention. The intention is to go with the, let's go ahead and run this and look at sample. The intention is that anything that is under the curriculum development role, under the admin role is like curriculum development and roles. So we'll bring that up in a second. So for example, defining a course, defining the learning outcome, defining who is in what role, those are all admin functions. So the admin should be able to view update courses, should be able to view update learning outcomes, and should be able to see the admin roles. An instructor should be able to see the course, and as was said on Piazza, you no longer need the C# version, you should just be able to see the courses associated with that instructor. The department chair should be able to see the courses associated with an instructor, but none of, like, both the instructor and the department chair should not be able to see any of these things.
It still sort of leaves out like
Sure.
some
Like what? Yeah.
like details of a program.
Details of what?
Like in the scaffolding, like you get the details section.
Of the learning outcomes?
Yeah, of courses too.
Yeah, so let's put an instructor in here. Good question, good question. So log in as, so professor can see this page where they see their courses, and a professor can see this page where they own this course and it has the learning outcomes. These are the only things the professor can see. Okay? The chair can also see this page. If the professor tries to see view or update courses, or change a course, or change a learning outcome, or see the details of a course, unless it is through my courses and the professor's own course webpage, the professor cannot see it.
So you block them out by only providing certain links. Like what happens if you type something up into the URL?
Something like,
Sure, edit or something.
edit one or edit, yeah. There's no links, there's no controllers in the instructor course view that allow the instructor to do anything except see. This is the only controller the instructor. This is the only controller that the instructor class view has, which is the ability to see ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Yes.
Can the admin see like everything, like including this page?
No, we post that on Piazza, but only the admins can see are the admin page, which shows, well, I can't see it because I'm an admin, but it would show the users and their permissions. And the admin can see the list of courses and the CRUD that goes with courses and the learning outcomes and the CRUD that goes with learning outcomes. Yes?
The two questions, the learning outcomes one, is that just a list of every learning outcome available, or do you need to have that?
Let's bring this up. So the admin, here's the learning outcomes, and this is a list of all the learning outcomes in the system. Okay. And you were saying, you were asking about the details, so like the admin can create a new learning outcome, or the admin can edit a learning outcome, or they can see the details of a learning outcome. These are all of these are admin functions. But again, we saw what the instructor can see. Yes, go ahead.
And then the second one is it says on the part 8, it says that the front page should have static links.
Yes.
So that See My Courses, is that always going to do the exact same thing? Or will it try to figure out who you are? If you're a professor and an instructor, will it try to figure out who you are and go and see your courses?
So you will notice that this is in a section called testing links. And this section is only for the TAs when they're testing, so they don't have to log in, log out from every user. They can immediately, as an admin, they can go click on See My Courses and see, nope, admin do not have access to that. They can also go to the overview of the program for the department chair and say, nope, admins do not have access to that. So this is static, and it'll go away once the program is published for real use, but this is for testing purposes. Notice that Aaron is an admin, and up here there's an admin link or menu. Let us log out and log back in as a professor. And notice that the admin link is gone here because professors don't have access. In theory, there should be an instructor link, and that chair link should be gone as well, but we haven't updated those.
But, so now that you're a professor, if you click on See My Courses,
Yes.
those courses, are they directly correlated with Jim?
Yes, these courses are being taught by Jim.
So if you were to sign in as Professor Danny, then they would, if you click on See My Courses, then it'd be correlated with Danny's courses?
I hope so. All right, so we'll go Professor Mary and See My Courses, and you notice that this is the course Mary is teaching.
So they're not really static.
The view for an instructor is not static, it is based on the instructor's ideas. Okay, so if I put static there, would you send me the location? But that's not what I meant by it. Okay. Yes?
So the way I interpreted it is you would have 3 different links, one per professor that's going to teach professors' courses that they're teaching. So you have 3 different test links for instructors.
Right, so you certainly, right there where you have See My Courses under this, you could have Jim's course link, Mary's course link, Danny's course link. That would be absolutely fine. That would be great. Again, the purpose of these is the TAs want to see, are you looking to see that you're enforcing authentication and authorization? And if they click on that, it goes, you can't see Mary's classes because you're Jim, or you can't see Jim's classes because Mary. That'd be fantastic. Yes?
So for the sake of this assignment, all these rights for each all are mutually exclusive. So the department chair cannot see any other courses otherwise, except for the program overview, right? Admin, even though his admin is supposed to see everything, he cannot see the course of the instructors. Are we supposed to assume that?
Admin can only see this. Instructors can only see their own courses. The chair can see the overview of the program and the courses by an instructor.
Okay, so,
That's the only difference from what you said.
so if the admin goes to update the course, he presumably can see the courses that instructors see, right? But he now can update and review any course.
So what can the admin see? Let me show you. So admins can see courses, assuming I was logged in as an admin. So admin can see courses. So here are all the courses in the system. Notice it doesn't show the learning outcomes associated with them. It doesn't show, it just shows the database interest entry. And the admin can, like if they wanted to edit and change the name of the course, they could change the name of the course. But that doesn't change who owns the course or the instructors.
Right, it's just the access question about which pages you can access. That's not.
So this is the only view that the admin gets, a list of all the courses in the database in this sort of thing.
And then the question about the program overview, what is that supposed to look like for the department chair? How is it going to be different from the courses view?
So the question is, what about what is the chair's view? And so the overview of the program would look something like this. Now, how is that different from the instructor's view?
Doesn't contain the description, all the details, right? Just a summary, short summary.
This is a summary overview, and when I was showing you Mary, what did Mary see? She just saw this one line. She didn't see all the courses.
If as a department chair, if you click see my courses, will this produce the same exact thing? Or will it be?
That's a good question. Welcome, professor, responsible for the following courses. So the department chair, who's not an instructor, is not responsible for any. Now, again, so
Access denied.
what?
Access denied.
So, yeah, the question is, what is the correct response here? And this is where, like, in reality, a specification document could go on for pages and pages. So what is the right response here? And the answer is, do something you think is reasonable. So access denied, you know, if you're the department chair and you click that link by accident, you get access denied, you might not be happy because you're the department chair. But what else could you do? I mean, that could be a reasonable thing to do. What else could you do? What do you think?
It might just be good as is, because sometimes the department chair takes on a course.
Oh, department chair might be a professor. Yeah, so it might, instead of saying you're responsible for the following courses and a blank table, it might be nice to say there are no courses associated with you this semester. That might be a nice thing to say. Yeah.
Should the department chair be able to do the details on the course? What details? Like the learning outcomes, whether or not they're complete?
So yes, the department chair, let's go back to the overview. So on the overview page, the department chair clicks on a course. They should not get that. Oh,
The routing?
I'll have to figure out why. The department chair, if they click on, in the department overview, if they click on one of the courses, they should see something that looks like just this view. Okay, any other questions?
Part of this assignment you mentioned, we do not have to create, we do not have to wire in the creation of the roles and reassignment of the roles in the code, right? Which means we'll have to assign the roles that we need and see things when you add the migration and update the database. Is that correct?
So the question was, do you have to have a page where you change roles dynamically? And the answer is no. And so where do you get those roles? And the answer is in the seeding of the database. All right. Any other questions on PS4? Yes.
When it comes to seeding, do you want us to just use the registration page on the actual website to put them all in?
No, I would like a code that actually builds the users so that they're there as soon as the TAs come to test. Just the same way you built the seed file to put data about the courses in it and the learning content.
And it'll automatically like encrypt the password?
Yes, so if you, and I think there's a link on Piazza about this. If you use the create user, you just give the user, which is identified by name and password in plain text, and it will encrypt the password for you as it goes. Okay, JavaScript. So, it's funny that JavaScript has the word Java in it, because at least when I first heard this many years ago, I figured JavaScript must be part of Java or something. I don't know why they came up with the name JavaScript. Someone should find that out and let me know. What's the difference? Java, object-oriented programming language. JavaScript, an object-oriented scripting language. Java is strongly typed. JavaScript is not strongly typed. dynamically typed. Java runs in virtual machine, and JavaScript runs in a browser, which, by the way, is a virtual machine. So, you compile Java into bytecode, basically when you're deploying it, whereas JavaScript is interpreted by the interpreter. But pretty much both languages, you can do almost anything in either one of these languages. It is amazing that JavaScript is accepted by all browsers, more or less. It's very powerful. It's very, it does so many things. It's got lots of libraries. In fact, some people argue that JavaScript is the most deployed language, period. So if you don't know JavaScript, you don't know the best language out there by how many people are running code in that environment. So as an aside, there's this neat website, https://jsfiddle.net. JSFiddle allows you to go and try out some HTML and some JavaScript. It's a little sandbox environment that lets you play with what you're doing. So rather than type it all in the Visual Studio and deploy your whole website and see if it works, you can go to JSFiddle, you can twiddle around with it and see what is going on and see if you've got it right. We will be using JSFiddle to look at some of these examples as we go today. Okay, JavaScript, it has objects, it has functions, it has variables, it has arrays, it has loops, it has comparisons, it has closures, it has libraries, it has try catch. Sound familiar? Okay. And most of them look pretty much like the languages that you are already familiar with. One of the neat things about JavaScript, perhaps neat, is it's being updated. It's constantly getting new features. People are going, this doesn't work well. A couple years ago, ES6 was released. And in ES6, you were allowed to create classes. So when in C# or Java, you have class student. In JavaScript, you had to just create a variable student and then add a bunch of stuff to that variable. But now you can define objects directly as classes. So I want to show you a little bit of the ES6 features. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so this website just shows a bunch of the things that JavaScript ES6 allows. For example, allows you to do constants, which are really great. I was teaching MATLAB a number of years ago, and one of my favorite things in MATLAB was to redefine pi to 22/7. And MATLAB allows you to redefine pi. And a lot of the engineers would really cringe when I did that, but hey, it's allowable. So constants are nice. Classes are the other thing that's really sort of interesting here. So in the old days, down below, this is how you define a rectangle class. A rectangle would become a function, and it would have some weird syntax in it. And then if you wanted to add a hierarchy, you'd have to say rectangle.prototype equals object.createShape.prototype. Just a bunch of really awkward syntax. Currently, though, this is how we say class rectangle extend shape. The constructor is this, super, this.width, this.height. Like, it looks just like Java, you C#. This is what people used to write. This is what you get to write. So it's pretty nice. There are a number of other additions that have been added, regular expressions, array enhancements. But the biggest one in ES6 is the ability to do classes and do them in a easily followed method. Okay. Now, one thing that you need to be warned of is JavaScript is evolving. It does change. And so when you're looking for examples on the internet, sometimes you'll find old examples, and you should probably set your Google query to only be a year back or a couple years back rather than be infinite. The other thing that's sort of interesting is this. Not all browsers implement all of JavaScript. Mm-hmm. And so if you are using the coolest, latest functionality, you need to know what browser you're targeting. So if you expect someone to use Safari, you need to know, does it do the things I need? If you want someone to use Chrome, well, pretty much Chrome is great. If you want someone to use Firefox, you need to know what version supports what you need. And so I will, let's click here on this nice chart. And you can see here, there is a list of different types of script level, like level 5, level 6, etc. And you can see all the different types of browsers, so Firefox and Edge and Chrome and Safari are all listed. You can see when and how much of each feature that they have. And so usually you just want to choose one of these that has all green down the line. And this, for example, Chrome usually has all the modern features. But be aware, if your user base is using old technology, you may not be able to use the most latest and greatest JavaScript. Another thing to note, JavaScript is just like HTML. When you serve a JavaScript program out to the world to use your program, all the source code goes with it. Say that again. All of your source code goes to their browser. What do you think of that?
Sounds dangerous.
Dangerous? How so?
And if someone has access to your code and your code does something like generate a secure key or something like that, then someone will have access to how your keys get generated.
Right, so if you're doing something on the front end that is secure or proprietary, now they have access to it. Right, so you don't. You basically, if you need to do something secure, you call your server and say, hey server, give me something secure. It does the computation and sends it back to the JavaScript on the front end. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Slow.
It's slower. What do you mean by that?
If you're getting everything, that is the most amount, whereas you could probably, I don't know, parse it down.
So are you saying the compiled version of code is smaller than the source code?
I don't know.
So you do have to transmit all the JavaScript. Now it turns out that we use lots of large JavaScript libraries, and if you transmit it once, then everyone can use the same library, so you save some that way. It turns out most of the time JavaScript, you're not writing huge programs, so the size of the JavaScript code is probably not a huge issue. Any other thoughts about having your code out there?
Like an experienced developer, probably be easier just to write JavaScript somehow. If you're trying to copy someone's functionality on the front end, you wouldn't go into the developer to just copy and paste their JavaScript, just write it from scratch. It's not usually that complicated.
Yeah, for most, so a lot of people are like, wait, I wrote that. I don't want people to use my great code and get lots of money from it. But it turns out that most JavaScript is not hugely functional. I mean, it doesn't do a huge amount of stuff, and it's not super complex. And yes, a good developer could probably rewrite it. I agree.
If I have all your code, I can make my website look exactly the same, then have my domain be one word off so people can get their information.
That's true. So it's talking about, could I spoof you? Could I make a website that looks almost exactly like yours because I have all of your HTML and all of your JavaScript, and then change my website URL to be like a one-letter difference, like Google with 3 O's or something, and then spoof people. Yeah, you could do that. But you could do that with HTML. You know, you don't want to spoof an entire website. What do you want to spoof?
People, the login page.
The login page is the correct answer. You want to spoof the login page. Once you have the login, you can go to the real site and do whatever you want with their login. Okay, so it turns out though, if you really don't want people to see what your JavaScript is, you can use obfuscators. So obfuscators are a great, I love this term, eschew obfuscation, which basically translates into avoid confusion. So if you ever want to tell people to be simple, use eschew obfuscation. Obfuscators take code and make it hard to read. Now, as soon as one computer scientist comes up with this great idea, hey, I'm going to make this obfuscator makes your code hard to read, what is another computer scientist going to do? They're going to write the opposite. Beautifier is something that takes your code and makes it easy to read. Now, one thing obfuscators do is they strip all the comments out. And I would argue, most of you would disagree, but I would argue that if all the comments are out of code, it makes it harder to use. Now, I know most of you don't believe in comments, so that this is not a big trade-off, right? Okay, so what does it look like? It looks like Java or C, even for those of you like C. Some things are different. I declare variable x instead of saying int x equals 5, I say bar x, and then it figures out what x is. Final loop for bar I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. I now have a loop that does things 10 times for me. If I want to declare a function, I just use the keyword function, give it a name, parameters, and put the code in curly braces. All of it's hopefully looking very familiar. If I want to do an if statement, if x is less than y, here's some code. Again, exactly what you're used to in any of your other languages. I'm going to click here on JavaScript tutorial, and you could very quickly scan through this week and see some of the things about how do you find a language. So what is a statement? Well, there's some example statements, and what are assignments. And look, if you want to know does plus plus exist in JavaScript, you can come and look and see if it does. I sort of thought it did. Anyone know if JavaScript is plus plus? It's an operators. Okay. You can see how to define functions. You can see how to use events. So we will be getting into events a little bit more. One of the nice things about this program is almost on any of the examples, they have to try it yourself. And they pop you up into their little JavaScript environment where you can run the code, click run, and it will show you what the output of the code is. So this is very similar to that JS Fiddle, except it doesn't allow you full control of the entire web experience. So let's go look at JS Fiddle. So the other nice thing about JS Fiddle is you can create a login and you can keep these things. So if you're playing with it and you can't get it to work, you could go to your favorite blog and post and say, hey, I'm trying this, you put the link to JS Fiddle, can someone help me with it? And they can go and see exactly what you did, and they can play with it too, and you can be interactive and get some nice feedback that way. But here's example, let's say I have a web page that has h1, hello world, and I run this, it shows me what the output of the web page is. And then I can choose what JavaScript libraries I want to play with. So I could go with pure JavaScript, but for the most part, we never use pure JavaScript. At the very least, we're going to use what's called JQuery. JQuery. But you'll see that there are lots of other languages that you could use. UE for a while. UE was very popular for doing web manipulations, but I think jQuery is probably one out. But you can see a lot of different libraries that you have access to. And if you don't find the library you want, you can go over here to the resource and you can paste your library in so that you can get it into your fiddle and play with it. You come up here and do CSS. So if I wanted to say H1 color red, I can do something like that, and then if I run my program, the color pops to red. So you can play with all the different things that you want to do to see how it will look with full control over your environment without having to go through the Visual Studio and deploy and launch. Yeah.
So how popular is it in JavaScript to use multiple libraries? I know, like, whenever I think of regular code, I think you use a ton of libraries, right? Yeah. With Bootstrap, you use that library. It's kind of hard to layer in one thing on top of it. With JavaScript, would you approach it the same way as Bootstrap, or is it like you use multiple libraries?
You use multiple libraries just like any other library environment. Yeah. That being said, for main, type of web application we're building with the learning outcome tracker, you use jQuery, you use the Bootstrap stuff. You may have one or two other libraries, but you probably wouldn't have a lot more. But say you wanted to do machine learning. You go, I wonder if there's a JavaScript library that does machine learning. I bet there is. And you can plug it into your website and do machine learning on people's browsers. If I wasn't clear before, JavaScript runs on your browser. So my web server could, for example, and they did, they wrote Bitcoin mining JavaScript. And so you go to a website and it would download the Bitcoin mining JavaScript on your laptop and it would start mining for Bitcoins on your machines using your power and your resources. And then when it found something, it would send it back to the website. So that's a pretty clever thing to do. Not really legit, moral, or legal, but clever. Okay. So we can test and do all this Java stuff that we want to do. For example, if I wanted to create a function, I could say function do it, and I could write my function. Now the question is, what do I want to do with my function? Well, I might want to just see if it's working. So there are 3 ways I'm going to suggest that you see that your code is working. One is called console.log. And what that does is when you inspect your code, so if I run this, and then I right click and say inspect, down here at the bottom will be console.log, and I will see my messages for anything that I wrote in the console.log. Okay. Anyone want to tell me why I didn't see a message right there?
If you open your, after you ran it.
Because you have to call a function, right? Exactly. So do it. Save and run my program, and then if I inspect, I will see there is my console.log. So that's really, it's your print statement. A lot of people use that extensively to make sure things are working. There's another way, which is more egregious, but also you'll see it happen, which is called alert. I hate alerts. So what alert is one of those pop-ups. So let me run this. And up here at the top of my page, will something will pop up saying, I hate alerts, and I have to hit OK before I can go on, so everything's frozen until I hit OK. So that, if you have an error that you really want to draw attention to when you're debugging your code, an alert is a way to do that. Okay, so let's see. As we discussed a second ago, you can choose what code you want to run on your server or what you want to run on their browser. Most proprietary logic runs on the server. Database queries almost always run on the server. But when it comes to things like building the web page, you have a choice to make. Do you build the web page on the server, or do you build the web page on the client? What do I mean by that? So we saw the courses example where I can say instructor courses 1 and it reloads a web page with web software. And I say instructor courses 2 and it reloads a web page that has 2100, right? Every time I go courses 3, 4, 5, I have to reload the web page. I have to request the entire web page to be downloaded. I can use JavaScript to say, don't give me all the web page, just give me the name of the course and the learning outcomes. JavaScript would get that information, and then it could build the web page on the browser for me. Now, why would I choose one or the other?
To make it run faster.
Okay, does it run faster? It probably does run slightly faster because the server doesn't have to build the website, depending on how complex the website is. On some of our websites, how much is content that we see and how much is garbage that is in the background? Someone's laughing. Why are you laughing?
Because that website's ads everywhere.
Yeah. There's tons of junk that's being reloaded every time. The ad, the images for the ads, there's a bunch of JavaScript in the back, there's tracking software, it's all being run, and it has to be downloaded every time. So if all you want is a little piece of the view, then using JavaScript to download that little piece without doing a page reload is very nice on your resources. So these are both ways that can be approached, and we'll talk about them as we move forward. For example, this is what I just said, but one of the things we're going to do next week is we're going to allow a professor to put a note on their course. So maybe the professor wants to give a note to the department chair saying, hey, I really don't like learning outcomes. They might just put that note on there. Well, if they decide, they write that note and they save it in the database, and then they decide this is probably not a good idea to show the department chair, I want to delete that note, do they need to reload the entire web page to delete the note? The answer should be no, they don't. They should be able to just modify the note and save the note itself. So you don't have to change the entire web page, you just change the note. Again, we'll see an example of that later on. Now, back to your question about how many libraries are we going to use. We're really just going to use JQuery for the most part, and of course the Bootstrap stuff that goes in there. So, jQuery. jQuery is used on the document object model, which is the web page, the data structure of the web page, and it allows you to manipulate it. And there's lots of things you can do. Here's some examples of what you do with just a pure DOM. You can write text to a web page. You can get elements by ID. You can get an element by name, so you can find stuff in a web page. And so jQuery simplifies all of these things. We have jQuery built into ASP. It comes as part of our default project, so that's nice, but it's easy to go to a CDN and download it, like code.jquery.com. And so, by the way, what is jQuery? Just so you know, jQuery is a library, a JavaScript library that is written in JavaScript, and it, like most libraries, does things that you do over and over again, just makes them faster and easier. Let me give you an example. Say you want to call a function in jQuery after the page is all set up. This is the notation you'd use. You just say $function. If you had to do that in plain JavaScript, you'd write document.addEventListener DOM content loaded, comma, the function, comma, false. So it just makes this nice. Likewise, if I want to find the title or some element in my page that has an ID, called ID in this case, I would do that in jQuery. I would say get element by ID in JavaScript. So same thing, it's just easier, smoother, nicer. The $, so the jQuery designers said, hey, we need a shortcut because we're too lazy to type jQuery every time. Why don't we define the $sign to mean jQuery? Does anyone else use the $? Nope, great, we will use the $. So now instead of saying jQuery, we just put a $. So that's what that $sign thing means. So what is the main thing that you're going to do with jQuery? You know, almost every JavaScript that you write is going to use what's called selection. You need to find some part of your JavaScript and you need to do something to it. So you're going to use a selector. The selector just looks like this. $, parentheses, and the thing that you want to select. So let me do one thing here, and then I will let you go. So let's go to jfiddle. And I want to come down here, and I want to select something. What do I have up there? I have an H1. So I'm going to say select the H1, and I want to do something to it. There are a lot of neat things built into jQuery. One of them is hiding elements. So I'm just going to say, when this page loads, hide the title. Let's run it. Oh, notice that alert is still there? You get very tired of that alert. And then it's gone, and the title's gone. So anything you need to make change in your document, you just give the name of it in some fashion, and you do something to it. All right, we'll pick up here on Wednesday.